So
Jethro.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was a good car.
Dave Nickerson, and then Lisa Ketchum. Do you know,
It's the first one I saw.
do you know anything about his state of recovery?
He's just been moved to another hospital for recovery.
He was out cold.
It was pretty serious.
He was,
I knew a woman who had an aneurysm. Unfortunately, she could not get on the airplane. Yeah.
you have,
Two notepads on staff.
you are set. Me, I'm hopeful.
I moved to get the Afghanistan to the cookies.
Chat like a
No, this,
break.
yeah.
Come back to it.
This is the handheld, the extension cord.
Maybe the other direction.
Yeah. There it goes. Maybe a little more force.
I think we're just about in time.
Boy, you know somebody who's been here a lot.
She knows somebody.
Good. Let me see what time it is. Let's call this meeting to order at 7:31. Looking for the speaker slip. What I need is, since I'm so bad, my memory is so bad, I need the agenda. There we go. Roll call, please.
Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
Director Harvey?
Here.
Director Lemon?
President's statement. As those of you who know who watch this meeting or are in the audience, you are aware that there has been some discussion at the board level while we're trying to sort out the details before we can make much public, that we are trying to acquire the Caltrans right-of-way for watershed protection and additional water sources. I noticed in this week's review,
Is that yesterday's?
this is yesterday's, a headline, State Considers More Affordable Lodging on the Coast. Now, one of the things that made me run for this board so many years ago was I happened to have a map of that Caltrans right-of-way, and I counted, using the county's then practice, 600 buildable lots. That would give us somewhere between 1,000 and 1,800 more cars in the back of Montara, which, given our road conditions, could be pretty bad. We probably have the sewer, we probably have the water, and if the state decided to sell this with the requirement of affordable housing to builders, the county would go along, and the citizens in Montara and Moss Beach would not have much to say about it. Just something to think about when you are trying to decide what is best, having a forever water supply with a good clean watershed protected, or lots more housing. I know we need housing, but perhaps it could be better thought out in other places. Oral comments, other than those on the agenda, I see one from Greg Diegas.
Greg Diegas, Montara. I was made aware earlier before the meeting that Clemens is an avid bicyclist, and I don't know if you're aware of the risks bicyclists take. If you've known anybody who's a serious bicyclist for some time, they always have a story about the time I was almost killed. And in fact, there was somebody recently killed. And so I just wanted to ask, do we have key man insurance on Clemens? I'm serious. Every major company I've worked with has had key man insurance for selected individuals.
Good question, Greg. We'll look it up. We'll dive into this. I'm not aware of it.
what you asked for, make them more target.
Okay. We have no public hearing. We have no consent agenda. We are moving into old business, review and possible action concerning vacant positions for Board of Directors.
I have a big pile of checks to sign and things like that. Were those supposed to be on approval on this agenda, or are those pre-approved?
We, as standard practice, approve warrants always on the 1st, but if warrants are due before the 1st, the treasurer signs those and we pay them in advance.
Okay, so I can sign
These
okay.
they need to be signed, they're due, and we don't want to accrue any late fees.
Since this is my first day as treasurer, I don't know all of those rules yet.
Okay.
That's
Could be my
perfectly
last day, I
fine.
hope.
So we have 4.
Let me just maybe do the
Yes.
introductory statement. So we had a resignation from Director Marshall, that was on October 16, that created a vacancy on the board. We then held a special meeting on November 5, at which the remaining members decided to fill the open position by appointment. The person appointed will serve the remainder of Mr. Marshall's initial half of the vacated term. So anybody who's appointed tonight or later would serve until the next 2020 election. The district, and then there would be 3 open positions, or 3 up for vote, essentially. 3 positions on this board up for vote.
And then they would run, the person who was elected to that position.
Would essentially then serve the remainder of the second half, so 2 years
Yep.
on this board.
Right.
Of course, we went through the required county notifications, posted the notice of vacancy and requirements for the government code. And so the last regular meeting at which we could make an appointment is December 5. There's still options for special meetings after that. If the board fails to make the appointment in the time required, that is before December 16, I think, the County Board of Supervisors may make the appointment. That's prior to 90 days, so they then have 30 days to appoint someone. We, of course, would like the Board of Directors now to interview the candidates. There is 2 candidates. There's a total of 4 candidates. 2 candidates are present. A 3rd candidate will participate by phone, and the 4th candidate submitted comments in writing just before the meeting. So the recommendation is that first thing, we pick up the phone and call the candidate that's on the phone. We interview the candidates, appoint the best suitable candidate as director for the vacant position, and this can happen by adopting resolution of the Board of Directors, filling the vacancy on the Board of Directors by appointment. So let me
while
call-
you're dialing, I'll make a few preliminary comments. I want to thank Peter Decker, Bill Kehoe, Alan Hafner, and Bob Patasek for submitting letters of interest. We're lucky to have such talented and interested citizens in our community.
Hey, Bob. You're in the midst of the board meeting. We just presented the item, and Catherine has the word.
So if there are questions from the audience, please put them on a speaker slip, and I will be happy to read them along with with the questions that were developed by the board. We have 9 questions that the board. We actually had more questions than that, but we sort of took all the ones that were the same subject and consolidated them in the interest of time.
Can we not use the word consolidation?
Oh, thank you. What we're going to ask from each candidate, we're going to do it in rotation, with the candidates sitting up here by the phone where Bob is. And Clemens, if you would read Ellen Hafner's
Yeah, I can do
comments, that would
Then
be
I'm
great.
just gonna stay in my seat. How
Right,
about
and you
that?
can put Alan's name in front of you.
And yes.
And
Bob's.
so we're going to ask for a quick introductory statement from each candidate. Then we'll go into the questions from the board, finish up with the questions from the audience. Then we'll ask for a brief closing statement by each candidate. And then we'll close the interview, and the board will discuss this in open session, of course, and then somebody will make a motion or not, and we will vote on the various nominations.
Will the candidates sit up here?
You know, we've got them sitting right.
Yeah, if the candidates could sit just right on the table. Can I have the printout from
Madam President, while they're proceeding, could I
Yes.
make a brief statement on sort of procedure that
Please.
I would recommend? Thank you. At the conclusion of the interviews, I would recommend that the President open the floor for nominations.
Okay.
And that each board member nominate one person for the appointed position. Then the President would entertain a motion to close the nominations. And at that point, the President would open the floor for discussion amongst the board members as to each nominee. And then a vote would be taken as to each nominee. The nominee with the majority of the votes would then be appointed to the board.
Okay, and we can do a swearing in tonight if
we can.
If the winning candidate is here. Otherwise, we'll do it on the 5th.
We do need to verify that they're a registered voter living within the jurisdiction of Montara before we swear them in.
Yeah, no, I think they have, one of the first question we are asking, are you a registered voter? And how long have you lived within the district? So, opening statement, let's start with alphabetically.
Alan's reading, or
Why don't you start reading Alan's introductory statement, and then we'll go to Peter, and then Bill, and then Bob.
Okay. So Alan says, hello, I have been a resident of the coast since April 1st, 1998. I have served on the Montara Moss Beach Water Improvement Association, assisting in getting us to the point of having our own water and sewer board. I have kept up to some degree with the issues around water rights, and the improvements to date. I would look forward to serving the community as a member of the board. Thank you.
Okay, Peter.
I, like Ellen Hafner, have been on the board of the Montara Moss Beach Water Improvement Association, so I know him well from there. I moved here in 1991 and was actively involved at that time in the discussions about what to do with water. I have recently retired. I no longer have any business dealings, and I'm looking forward to contribute to the continued successes of the water and sewage district. I am very much impressed with the work that has been done so far, and I hope this will continue.
Thank you. Bill.
Okay, Madam Director of the Directors, I'm Bill Keogh. I've been a resident of Moss Beach since September 1985. Back then, when I first came here, we got our water through Citizens Utilities. And we paid, I think, the second highest rate in the state of California for what was almost undrinkable water. About that same time, I bumped into this odd fellow on the coast side by the name of Gary Wahaptik, and he began to educate me on the problems with water on the coast side. I guess he was forming the MMB WIA. That's such a horrible acronym, but I shouldn't say anything.
It's too long.
But it began there, my whole involvement and all things on the coast side, which I'll get to later. I fully supported the idea way back when we were trying to get our own locally controlled water board. I believe I even campaigned and did post office duty, trying to convince other people to do that, as I had done so many times after that for different board members. I think that we ended up actually getting everything that was promised, or almost everything that was promised. I can't think of anything we didn't get. We got a well-run board, we had, for the most part. Well, I won't point out any of the people here. We've gotten a much higher quality of water. Citizens never invested in any of the infrastructure, so there's a lot of startup costs that people used to grouse about, and buying them out and then having to go back and do a whole lot of maintenance. But over time, that's been handled well. Our rates have gone up only marginally compared to a lot of the other local districts, so that now our prices are better or competitive with any of the districts that used to laugh at us. For this reason, I am looking at the board and making sure that whoever gets appointed that understands that history and why we have to be very protective of what we have here. I consider all the ratepayers shareholders, because some of us have been paying since the beginning, and that is a major investment for anybody on the coast side. And just to have someone come in and say, oh, well, now you're going to have to start giving it to XYZ district or whatever, we need to be able to keep that at a limit. So the only other thing I could say as far as a political thing, I helped form, in back around 1991, I worked with a few people, helped to form the Mid-Coast Community Council. That was, again, trying to get local representation, because at that time, if there was an issue with the county over anything from overdevelopment to building permits to traffic to all the things we're still talking about today, you had to take time off from work and drive over to Redwood City to voice your disapproval, and they would give you 2 minutes, and that was it, after you spent an hour over and an hour back. So the Mid-Coast Community Council has been very successful in getting better representation for us here too. And I also served on that for a few years as chairperson, vice chairperson, and the rest of it. So the reason I'm running basically is I want to keep the board moving forward in the way we've been moving over the years. I think it's important that we do acquire the tunnel bypass property from Caltrans, as you pointed out, for a watershed area, possibly maybe working with ecology on compost, because that's a big issue that came up recently at a Mid-Coast Community Council. But just to keep the progression going. We've had a forward-looking board. We've had a very good conservative board, and as far as controlling costs and providing value, and I think that's mainly what we need to do on the board. So I probably rambled on too much, sorry.
That's okay. Bob?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Decently?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Bob Potasek. I've lived on the coast since 1985. Previously served on the board through the SAM expansion and water acquisition, and that's about it.
Okay. Moving on to, are you a registered voter living in MWSD, and how long have you lived within the district? Peter?
Yes, I am a registered voter. I've given the proof of that registration to Clemens earlier today, and I will get the actual certificate in the mail shortly. I've lived here since 1991.
Okay. Bill?
I've been a registered voter in Moss Beach since 1985 when I moved here. I did not have a voter registration card because I haven't been asked for that. since 1985. Whenever I go to vote, or used to go to vote at the polls, they would just take your license and sign in. They just wanted to verify your face with the address, and that was it.
It's actually disallowed to.
Anyway, Bob,
It's actually disallowed in the state
no,
to demand ID.
Bob.
Yes, I said, yes, I'm a registered voter. I've been in the district for 34 years, and I've sent my voter registration to be funded.
Okay, Alan.
Alan says yes since April 1st, 1989.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? What does a voter registration card even look like? I have no idea
I don't know.
what I'm looking for.
I've never seen one.
I saw
Okay, so now we know who collects and saves all the paperwork and others of us who are a little more casual.
If you go to the website, the Sanitary County website, and then you look for the voter registration card, they refer you to being able to send you a notice saying that you are a registered voter. That good enough.
Okay, I actually went there and I typed in my info and they told me I'm registered and all that kind of stuff. So I know I never missed an election. But
for $1.50, you can go over there and get a certificate, or you can ask them to send it to you.
You can spend an hour driving over.
And then spend $1.50,
back.
yeah. Okay, second question. Who are the stakeholders for sewer service, trash, and water? Those would be for the customers of the district. And are they the same or different for each service? And we'll start with Bill.
Oh, okay, let me first, what do you mean by stakeholders? You mean the people that actually pay the bills? Or do you mean the companies that provide the service?
It might
go between that manages it.
They're all stakeholders.
Well,
Okay, well,
so the ones that come to your mind.
Okay, well, first and foremost, I believe, as I said before, the stakeholders are the ratepayers. They're paying the bills. After that, the people that provide the service, well, in the case of water, it's the board here. Sewer district provides some of it, although MWSD also provides some of it. It's kind of split when you get into the whole intertime bit. And so, yeah, I mean, first things first would be the ratepayers, and then after that, work through MWSD to deal with the others. Oh, and ecology handles our hard waste.
Yes.
Of course, I forgot about them.
Okay.
How did I forget, Chris?
Bob.
Yeah, the ratepayers are the stakeholders, and while on the board, I went through 3 contract negotiations with what is now Ecology and its predecessors.
Thank you. Alan.
Alan says trash is provided by Ecology, water and sewer are provided by the sanitary district.
Thank you. Peter.
That's basically my response. Same response that Ellen just gave. We have contracted with Ecology. The rest is our service from Montara, Moss Beach citizens, and from Half Bay citizens. I have looked at the financial records shortly, the last audit available, and it kind of concerns me that evidently there is a lot of things wrong with SAM, with our corporation, with the other agency. And I, as a board member, will do my very best to assist in making that situation with the problems that we have with SAM better.
Good.
Do away with it.
Good. Okay, number 4. What is your position on MWSD acquiring additional land for watershed protection and future water needs? We'll start with Bob.
Well, I would support that because we have some wells that process water run. We need the water in order for us to have the best quality and best quality. So I support the acquisition for the community's use of any water we could possibly get out of that acquisition.
Thank you. Alan?
Alan says, I believe the MWSD may want to look into options, including what may be the path of least resistance while maintaining its independence. While obtaining both the land and the water rights may be the best alternative, if obtaining the water rights alone is more economical, easier, and quicker to obtain, and can still secure water for the community with assurance of the quality of the water, it should be considered.
Thank you. Peter?
I think our focus, since we presently have sufficient water, should not be on acquiring any additional land. I think the focus should be on acquiring perhaps water rights within that land, and our other expenditure should be focused on trying to improve the sewage situation.
Thank you. Bill?
As I said in my opening statement, I actually believe that it's of the utmost importance that MWSD acquires the Caltrans right away. And as you mentioned, as a place that is a watershed area for keeping safe, clean water, also looking to the future, there could be other uses, like I mentioned, working with ecology for composting, which a lot of people, well, not a lot, some people out here have been asking for. Going towards the future, an investment like that may come in handy in employee retention with the price of housing, where you could have some controlled housing put on the land for employees that could help with their ability to live and work on the coast side. And those are just, off the top of my head. You see now where a lot of school districts have had land and they're looking to do that with teachers and so on. Land in California is not a bad investment, so it's something that if the numbers come out, I'll actually go back to, this was a problem that we had when we were trying to buy out Citizens. Everybody was, oh, we got to spend all this money, but over 20 years, it was a great payback. I mean, that's a great retirement system if you work for a living. So come on, you gotta have a board that's looking forward, or will just implode and die.
Good point. Okay. Starting with Alan, what is your position on districts consolidation or districts consolidating on the coast?
No consolidation. We have different needs than Half Moon Bay. I would not want our future supply of water
oh dear.
No, we have different needs than Half Moon Bay. I would not want our future supply of water to be tied to the needs of the residents that do not live in our community or do not share in the cost of obtaining the water. In addition, I would not want to take the chance of pressure from the county to use water consolidation to pursue combining the unincorporated county into Half Moon Bay.
Okay. Peter?
I'm of the opinion that we should retain our independence. I do not know what CCWD brings in terms of problems and deferred maintenance, and I wouldn't want to take that burden on us.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, consolidation, with our water supply would just be an erosion of our ratepayers' investment, like I said in my opening statement. There are probably other ways needed that we could work with other districts, but it would have to be at a no cost to the current ratepayers. It's not just Half Moon Bay, on the CCWD. Look at the issues that have come up around consolidating the sewer. They interpret the law, even though it's in English, a completely different way than a normal person would read it. It's something that looks like it would be opening up a can of worms, and they love to sue because they know as a big district, they have deeper pockets, and so all they have to do is keep taking this back to court until they bleed us dry. So I'm very worried about anything with consolidation word in it.
Thank you. Bob?
I do not agree with any consolidation for the districts. London has been looked at in the past. The consolidation means that we currently have representation, and to say so as a community, what happens to our assets, it would be a minority, and in all previous consolidation talks, there is no financial gain existed because it was region record, so you wouldn't, just for sake of example, if it's $1 cost in Half Moon Bay, does not mean it would be $1 cost in Montara, and we wouldn't have a representation as a minority interest. So I do not think that consolidation is any good for the community.
Thank you.
There are no benefits to it for us.
Thank you. What is your position on rate increases, starting with Peter?
I think from a purely financial point of view, we should make sure that the continued financial ability of the district remains positive, that we are a viable business, so to say, going forward, and a adjustment every year accounting for inflation and accounting for improvements to the system should be allowed, but should not be to the point that it exceeds an amount that is higher than 5-6%. I think that's a reasonable increase as we are looking back over the previous years, and that's pretty much the increases that I've seen in the time that I've looked at bills. I think that's reasonable. Also, we should take into account that our employees need to be properly compensated and that we have the ability to do so. So for me, financial viability is very important, which is why I'm so worried about the situation with our arrangements with SAM.
Thank you. Phil?
I think Peter pretty much listed out many of my concerns on rate increases. Having watched many budget battle and fights over rate increases over the past few decades, or at least the past decade when I kind of came to these meetings all the time, I said earlier in my open statement, we've had a very frugal board, of which Bob was always the penny pincher, and I thank him for it now that I'm retired. Thank you, Bob. That we've never had any kind of rate increases that were out of line with the needs to keep the district viable. And so I trust our board to keep doing that. And I think anybody who got elected to that, they should be looking at the value of the product and the cost of the product go hand in hand. And that's what you have to do as a board member.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, well, rates are the cost of providing a service. We should never provide $1 worth of service, but yet be demanded to produce it for the cost of 75 cents. We can't provide 75 cents worth of service and charge others for $1. The entire thing about rates is to be able to explain the details, why we're doing it, what the purpose of it is, and that's how you communicate to the community. We want to flick the switch and have electricity. We want to flush a toilet and have water. There's cost to maintain that system, whether you use a gallon or 1,000 gallons, and that's what rates should be based on. And the board has done that, as Bill has explained over these years, and I just wish more public boards in the state, the country, would do what we do. We explain the details, and we should continue to do that.
Thank you. Alan?
While rate increases are necessary, they should be kept to a minimum, and the users should be informed well in advance. When possible, users should be given the opportunity to decide how their money is spent, improvements, tanks, etc.
Thank you. How have you contributed to our community in the past? Have you had any prior political involvement on the coast, either by holding office or attending meetings? We'll start with Bill.
Well, as I said, I helped form the Mid-Coast Community Council, and I served on the council in various positions, including chair. I've also been involved, although I've stepped back a lot from it in the past couple of years as I get older, of doing a Coastside Emergency Action Program and CERT training, community emergency training stuff. I also ran for the fire board back in 2014, I think, just after we worked on the recall on the fire board, but I wasn't elected. It must have been my sweet personality. I've been involved a lot with the community. I've raised my kids here, so all the typical school stuff, and I was a big proponent of the band program and middle school and high school, so I spent a lot of time doing that kind of stuff. And people know who I am, and they avoid me.
Bob?
Well, I have been involved with other endeavors on the coast. My political career has been spent on Montara Water and Sanitary District.
Okay. Alan?
I was a member of the Montara Moss Beach Water Improvement Association. I was involved in attempting to monitor our cost while our water and sewer was provided by citizens and by American. I was also involved in dealing with the county to eventually allow the community to create the MWSD and purchase our water rights. I handed out flyers, attended meetings, and helped relieve the community of the private water companies.
Peter?
I was also there with the Montara Moss Beach Water Improvement Association and participated in the efforts there for many years. In the 1990s, I was also on the PTA of the Hatch Elementary School, and I was later on involved in a similar effort at the middle school for my children.
Fabulous.
I was a treasurer, by the way, in the case of the PTA. And in the
Okay.
case of the middle school.
Would you commit to serving the people of MWSD and be involved in caring for the district? Bob?
Yes.
Alan?
Why would I be on this board if not?
Peter?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes, of course.
Do you have any conflict of interest in serving as an MWSD board member? Alan?
I am not aware of any association that would prevent me from serving on the board.
Peter?
I am retired presently. I am no longer doing any business activities, so I'm fully ready to give 100% to my work on board.
Thank you. Bill?
I have no conflict of interest.
Bob?
I have no conflict of interest.
Okay. And last but not least, what is the greatest problem or threat you see facing MWSD at this time? Peter?
The way that we at the Montara Water and Sanitary District have been told by the state to combine our efforts for sewage has kind of put in my mind that the same thing might happen with water, and I would very much like to see not to see that happen. In my mind, looking at the financials of the organization, it is essential that we straighten out the situation with the sewage district and that we remain viable. I think our viability financially is essential to us being able to continue to do what we're doing now.
Okay. Bill?
So, probably the most pressing problem, Peter hit on this, is our SAM interaction, and I see that really as a major political problem and not a technical or management problem. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there, and you shake your head when you read about it, saying, how could they vote that way? And so I guess, I don't know how that's going to be solved. It's like a bigger question, how we're going to solve the problem in America to have people start to think and vote properly. It's kind of crazy. I'd be leery of getting into any other entanglements. There's always the fact that the state can move in and do whatever they want, although we've had some pretty good support from state senators. But you mentioned it at the beginning here, housing. If there was a force to put in more housing out here, especially a large number, what is the viability of our resources? Do we have enough water? And do we have enough water 10 years from now? Or will it evaporate because of climate change? I mean, there's so many unknowns that we could be very vulnerable if it's not managed in a conservative, precise way using good business practices. And that's why I think local control is the most important thing that we can do. We paid for this system, we use this system, and I think everybody out here who drinks the water wants to preserve the system. And that's what I think we have to do.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, internally in the district, there aren't any threats. We have a well-run district. We have overcome many obstacles. We manage our resources well. Our biggest threat is from the outside. And as I mentioned, it's either down the highway or over the hill or from Sacramento, who are looking at us in envy because what we have, our asset, is better than some of the assets that want us. And that's the threat. And we've been vigilant for years and years, and that's the challenge for us to continue that vigilance.
Thank you. Alan?
The possibility of forced consolidation with CCWD or litigation that drains the funds needed to provide service to the community. I know that improvements have been made to the system recently. However, I do not know what may be needed to meet the needs of the community going forward, including the possibility of future droughts.
Thank you. Okay, now we will ask for a brief closing statement by each candidate on why you want to serve on our board. Bill?
Well, I didn't realize when I applied for this how much better qualified some of these candidates are. In particular, Bob Tasic, who I've known for many of the years he was on the board, and what a great job he did while he was here in negotiating contracts and the rest of it. And Peter, who worked with Gary on Montara, Moss Beach Water Improvement Association to help get this independent board up and going. So I think, although I've been here many a meeting and have worked with you and supported you and even campaigned for you, because I do think you have done a great job, I think they would do probably a better job with the nitty-gritty than I would. So as much as I would like to do this, I'm really here to make sure that we don't get someone who does not believe in local control, that wants to push towards consolidation. If everybody else is on the same plane as I am, the ones with experience will probably do a better job. So that's where I stand. To make it easy on you guys, you decide who's best, but don't feel obligated to vote for me.
No one ever makes it easy on us. Don't confuse us.
Bob.
And only offer.
Bob?
Well, this is going to sound interesting too, because why did I submit my name was mainly that I was concerned of two things, that there wasn't going to be any interest and the board would be substituted to for a while, which wouldn't serve the community well. satisfied that there are many qualified people. And I really would also say, one of the other qualified people, my concern was there wouldn't be anybody, in which case I would be willing to do this for a year, or that there would be folks who aren't looking at the best interest of the district. And I've heard others here that are very interested, and I'm pleased to let that torch pass on.
Thank you. Alan?
I wish to be part of those that help secure and maintain the water and sewer service that are provided to our community. To help secure our water for the future as well as make sure our infrastructure is in the best condition possible for normal service and for any future disaster. On a separate note, I do not want to be given any special treatment in comparison to the other candidates for today's meeting due to my not being able to attend in person. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Peter?
It's so wonderful to see all the candidates coming forward tonight and being so passionate about helping out and helping the community. I feel each one of the candidates is fully qualified to take on this position, and I'm in full support of whoever you may choose to come on board to do the duties that we, as people who live in this community, expect of them. I have no doubt that any of the candidates this evening is fully qualified, and I leave it up to you to make the decision as you.
Thank you. So we will close the interview for the board position. I don't see any slips from the audience with questions, so okay, we'll close the interview and open up for nominations.
I'll nominate Peter.
Do you need a second on these?
No.
or
No
Just
second.
nominations, okay.
Do I hear any more nominations? I will close the nominations.
I just want to say, my heart is full. I'm seriously, I know that there are, everyone in this room who is here to speak on the topic, to stand for this position, to serve on the board. This is a great collection of people who have all served, and I count in that number Greg, who has just been showing up and doing some really great things in a volunteer capacity, same way I started, and I too was concerned about whether or not we would have someone willing to step forward, and thank you all. I'm really impressed and really grateful. Thank you.
And I'd like to make a comment that although you don't get selected tonight, perhaps,
We have your name.
we may need you.
We know where you live.
If a present board member leaves or something happens to one of us, we know that there are people who can step forward to take our place. So that's really great to know that we, in case something.
I don't have a voter registration card, so I'm safe.
I don't either.
Uh-oh. Rick?
I couldn't second the nomination, but I want to second everything Scott said about everybody helping out. It's a great community here.
I will make a closing point before the vote in this period of discussion and thank every single one of you who filled out a note of intent. It shows your interest and your skills and your knowledge show why this is such a great district, along with Greg and Lou, and frankly all the folks who are watching this. We have an extraordinary community that understands the value and basis of community and keeping independent financial small government that can represent the people in a sane manner. So I want to thank Alan Hafner and Peter Decker and Bill Kehoe and Bob Kasich and say, please keep us involved. Please keep involved and keep us in line, because none of us do this as well as all of us. And so I thank you very much. I only counted one nomination, and that everybody had the opportunity to nominate someone else, so it is a unanimous decision. Welcome to the board, Peter.
Thank you.
Now what do we do?
Adopt resolution.
Thank you.
Number, who knows?
Adopt resolution, let me see, you've got it. Yeah, right here. 1665. That's your lucky number, Peter. Or your unlucky number.
So I move adoption of the resolution next in order.
1665. Thank you.
As written.
No.
Do we have a second?
Jim, would you second?
I second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carries.
Now there is an opportunity to actually swear Peter in.
Oh, good.
One of you guys would take
I
this
will-
on you. We
I
have
will be,
actually-
if you have it printed, because I don't remember it.
It's
Is this something about the Constitution
Something about supporting,
that we're talking about these days?
This is California. We believe in the Constitution.
Well, we do in the country too, I think.
today. Perfect.
I know we do.
Great. So it's in the board packet, Catherine.
oh, it is.
Yes, last page.
Oh, well,
Oh, thank you. Well, that's for-
So,
put it in there.
wait, that's the wrong one.
so almost anyone can administer it. Want to do that?
Would you like to do that? I can't find it.
Go ahead.
I put the
In
board
Go to
packet,
the staff report. It's the third
Why don't
page.
you hand her the computer, then we can move on.
here we go,
Here, Catherine.
here we go. Oh,
You got it?
wrong one. Okay, thank you. Peter, if you
So I
would,
think you should probably, you guys should stand up
you come up here.
and take this as serious as it is.
This is truly very serious, and you need to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Peter Decker,
Peter Decker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
And we'll put you right here.
There's the name, your name tag?
Scott's got it already.
Oh, Scott has it.
There we go.
Peter, if that chair is, if you want one of these regular chairs, you can trade.
Do we have
It's up to
a,
you. Board package, there are two kinds of chairs.
I'll swap with you, I don't mind.
There are two kind of chairs.
Oh,
Enjoy the cleat while it lasts.
Yeah.
we're always conditional, Scott.
It's a trap.
New business. Review and possible action concerning approval of purchase for generator at Wagner site. And I think this will be a short,
Thank you, Catherine. So this is essentially...
Bill, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bob.
Good luck.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This board already approved a generator, actually a much more expensive generator for the Alta Vista plant earlier this year. Our generators have been in service for quite some time. Most of them actually come from still the Citizens era. And we actually had a failure of a unit at the Wagner site. The Wagner site went through some significant work recently and was offline. That's why we weren't immediately in need of one, and we actually were able to rent another generator that helped us at the Portola 3 well to offset some of what we needed produced during the power outages, for example. Now it's time to replace the Wagner 3 trailer-mounted generator. It's a 30 kW generator. We got 3 quotes and got a very favorable quote from CD Power for a multi-quip unit. And that's really the recommendation from staff. This is, we're looking at cost and also on the short lead time for the delivery of the generator. I'd like to take the opportunity to let the board know that CD Power we looked for a new company that could do the annual maintenance on our generators. There's monthly maintenance that's done by staff. It's, goes as far as looking at oil temperature readings, running them, and so on, making sure that everything is topped off and ready to go. But for annual maintenance, you need a professional load bank on, and do a load test. That's equipment that we don't have, and that's contracted out. And we ran into similar issues that the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast site has with that service, as well as the City of Half Moon Bay. And we found CD Power, a company that was very capable in assisting us during the recent issues, and we were very pleased with their low rates and what they did for us. So just letting you guys know we're working with them. So the recommendation now is to authorize the general manager to issue a purchase order to CD Power for $39,824.18.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Say aye.
Yes, say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And I think it was a short discussion, having been without power for 38 hours in the recent past and almost without power this recent week.
I just want the record to show that, it wasn't 3 minutes, Peter being on the board, that he voted to spend money.
It's the coffees and the cookies that did it.
Yeah, well,
The cookies, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to reports, Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side. Our next Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side meeting is on Monday. We haven't had one earlier in the month because of Veterans Day.
I just have one comment. I believe I read in the Half Moon Bay, glancing at titles, there was a title said that the SAM board discontinued looking for a general manager. I would like to correct that. This was done solely by Half Moon Bay. There was not a SAM board vote to stop looking for a general manager.
So
That's interesting.
Sam is looking for a general manager.
No.
I suggest that we ask to have that discussion on the agenda. Would you like to make that call tomorrow morning?
Sorry.
To Penrose, President or Chair Penrose and Keishan, and ask to have the discussion of that article as part of our agenda.
just for the audience, the SAM chair has the authority to organize the agenda and make sure the meetings come together and do a few other minor administrative organizational things, but no special powers are delegated to the SAM chair by the SAM board. All of those powers remain as board powers. So what you're seeing is all of us being a little surprised that the chair is acting as an executive when in fact the chair is a facilitative organizer.
Yes.
Wait, can I ask a question? Was Sam looking for a manager before that comment?
We have had an engagement with a management search company.
Okay, so the statement by the chair has no effect, so we're still looking for a manager.
Well, I would like to have that, I believe we should have that reaffirmed.
Okay, that's fine. I understand.
By the
board.
It currently is stopped, so.
It currently, apparently
We haven't
on
had
the
a meeting
direction of the
since- We haven't
chair,
had a meeting since.
Okay, so we'll have a meeting. You'll have a meeting.
on Monday. You're welcome to come.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are other members of the public.
All members of the public. Midcoast Community Council, I have nothing to report. CSDA report?
There was no meeting CSDA. LAFCO, I attended the LAFCO meeting yesterday. Not too much happened. We had 2 more mergers from unincorporated areas into a city due to some failing septic systems and being close enough to the city that they could be incorporated into the city. That's fairly common. The one comment I wanted to make was one of LAFCO's roles is to do these service reviews of cities and special districts. That role is going to be changing a little bit in the future. These service reviews will now also include any effects of climate change, conflicts, problems caused by climate change, and they will also start looking into pension plans of the organizations they will be looking at. So if they're reviewing a city, they will be reviewing the pension plans of the city. If it's a special district, they'll be doing the special district reviews. The next chunk is a bunch of cities to the north of us. I don't think the coast side is up for several more years before we get our review again from the forest. So we have several years.
Well, given the exceptionally small staff at LAFCO, they're going to either have to hire more staff or bring in outside consultants, which means the costs of these municipal service reviews will be going up, probably dramatically. And
yeah, there are some moves to, I think especially with cities, which tend to be more just stable. The city is the city, and it's still a city 5 years later, that they will be looking to, instead of just starting from scratch every time, they will look at what has changed from the last time. You know, have there been more people? Did they annex anything? Did they change processes? So hopefully, now that they've sort of made the round once, the next rounds will hopefully go. And they have an assistant now they've added. So there's one extra person at LAFCO now. But they will go out to outside people if they have to. But hopefully they don't have to start from scratch because everything they investigated didn't change that much. Special districts, probably a little more interesting because we're a little more volatile, especially here on the coast.
I will say that your comment about the annexation parcel by parcel of houses into the urban area by due to the failure of septic systems is exactly what got me running for this board years ago, because the county was doing such a I'm looking for the right job or the right word, inept job.
That's a word.
Of sizing septic systems and on the for the lots, and of implementing those kinds of things, and keeping even a set of maps that showed where each septic system was. And I could just see And I wasn't retired then, but retirees like me who live on a house that has a septic system, all of a sudden being told, oops, now you have to join into the rest of Montara, and oh, by the way, that sewer line you're running will be about $300,000, so you may as well mortgage your house. And I am very glad that Montara takes the septic systems seriously, because neither the Coastal Commission nor the county nor the state had any interest in that. And for the audience here and there, LAFCO means Local Agency Formation Commission, and it is an agency of the state that is funded by the cities and the county and the special districts. But it is carrying out the mandates of the state. You can read about what those are in the most recent Little Hoover Commission report. The one from the year 2000, which has been amended somewhat, was requiring the consolidation of special districts into cities. There were cities and people at the legislature, in my opinion, who saw special districts with our financial abilities to raise rates as a place for additional cash. And when we had the first and only municipal service review way back when, in a small footnote, it mentioned, and there was the municipal service review did not call for consolidation, it actually called for a different kind of change. But it was noticed that Half Moon Bay Sewer District was in the red, meaning their sewer rates were either not high enough or the money was going into the general fund somehow. And when I pointed that out and mentioned that Grenada and Montara were financially very stable, there was like this deafening silence in the room. It was very interesting. But Half Moon Bay did ask to have the sphere of influence remain, that we could be consolidated, and so that's what happened. Attorney's report.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report.
Director's reports.
I'd like to make a comment. Last Friday, Recology at Fairlawn View School had a large pickup service. People, we were first in line. There were pickup trucks all the way out to 3rd Street, and to dump off large items. They had 4 garbage trucks lined up in Fairlawn View to pick these up. It's a great service that Recology does, and it's a godsend for us not having to go to Ox Mountain up that road through the dust and drop off things. So I'm really thankful to Recology for providing that service.
Well, and Ox Mountain charges a significant amount of money for any additional drop-offs, and we pay for this service through our trash rates with Recology. So we do we have negotiated a very good contract. General Manager's report.
Nothing additional to the written report.
Okay. Future agendas? We'll think about that. Call me, let me know if you have any new agenda items. We are going to recess and convene in closed session. Well, Peter, it's a pleasure. I've been nagging you for years, and I don't feel like this.
I was wondering,
have you done that before?
Good thing, since, you know, you and I had done lots of stuff on Montara.com recently, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to.
I'm gonna go make myself some tea.
I didn't mean to. That's fine.
Yes.
By the wayside.
Okay, sure thing. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, I'm not quite sure about my official function right now.
So, what happens now is,
What happens now?
Peter's appointment, I think I sent a copy of the resolution.
they leave, well, once